All right, so even though we're late in the game and we're finishing off, I hope to finish the whole project off with this demo and submit it. We just keep building and working towards an overall finish. And once we have kind of a way of doing that, and I'm doing it with all these kind of hatch marks now, blending in lots of colors, it's still, you're not locked into what you've done. You can still make big changes if you think they're necessary. And that's another thing, don't get too locked into little details. So for instance, if I think an eye has grown through my painting around it to be slightly angled wrong or in the wrong shape, I can be bold and move that. So let me show you how I might go about that. And again, it's using compositing skills. Let me just get to that point. Build up a little bit more around these lips. Get a little bit more shadow under that nose. So I'm using a light touch now, but being aware very much of my navigator. And it's a fine line between making something look finished and making it look fussy, overworked. So I also don't want that. All right, so if I think this eye, honestly, I think this eye has just gotten a little too tilted. So what can I do? I can hold down Option. Maybe I'll turn off the backgrounds before I do this. And I hold down Option and I say Layer, Merge Visible, so it puts all of those onto one combined layer right there. And on that layer, I'll turn the backgrounds back on. This is the beauty of digital. I can take this whole section of the eye, and you'll see, digital artists do this all the time, kind of adjusting. And I'm going to duplicate it, Command J, so it can kind of blend in with what I already have. And then I can warp, I can reposition, I can just tug at it, and I'm going to look mostly at my navigator there. So just that made a big difference in terms of kind of straightening the eye. But these things are important. Just slight. We're so sensitive to all these little measurements. And so it's never too late in the game to observe these things more carefully. I can tighten the shape a little bit. And I love this about digital art. I love how you can just play with it. I can change his eyebrow expression just slightly. And because I did it on a new layer, kind of always squinting, I get to make it my own. So that versus this. Whoa. Can make a fun little GIF animation too. Hubba hubba. All right. And then we keep going. We keep building. Let's see, what else needs to be done? The shirt, the lower lip's still too bright. And at some point, for us, our critique is at 11:30. We're just going to submit what we have and reflect and learn from it and share our work. Because sometimes we just need our work to be seen and we need to get some distance from it. And if you're looking for a place for color, you're never wrong to use red around the eyes. You're never wrong to use red at creases because it's a nice dark yet saturated value. You're never wrong to use it on elbows and on knees. Red is your friend. It's the most common color or it's the most common ink other than black on white paper to be used in media. A strong emotional impact. Means different things in different colors, but red always means something. I'm sorry, it means different things in different countries, but it always means something. No one ignores red. Tan, on the other hand, usually finds itself alone at the party. Not as exciting. Khaki. Khaki doesn't even get invited anymore. So you're never wrong in digital painting to reevaluate where your highlights are. If they're in the right places, if they're strong enough, if they're too strong. And just by building up all these different layers, you're ultimately making the whole painting richer. Especially as we look at it more up close, once it's printed. And we have a printer that's large enough now, we could print these at life size. These head portraits we're doing. Something to consider. You could hang it above your bathroom sink instead of a mirror every morning. Just look at your beautiful digital painting work. All right, we have to finish off with boring stuff. You can't ignore it forever. Things like the shirt, back of the neck, little details like freckles, facial hair, moles. All those can be fun little elements to put in. I'm going to go ahead and take my opacity down only to about 50%. It allows me to be a little bit more aggressive without making as much changes in the painting I'm doing as I'm adding some of these blemishes in different colors. And again, they only work once you have the structure underneath. You can't start with little details. You can't have fun with them at the end. If your brush starts to lag behind what you're doing, you want to save it. Let Photoshop catch up with you a bit. And now let's deal with the shirt. So it has these wrinkles at the edges. They're very subtle. I'm at a low opacity. But I like how they kind of point towards the more interesting parts of the composition. So they'll help the viewer's eye get there. You have the sharper crease here at the bottom, but not quite as dark as I had painted it. So I'm going to use my old trick of blending in the colors. by selecting from these opacities, blending them in. Fabrics have a lot of different creases you can use, especially at the edge. I'm going to get less specific about them. They also have big form shadows and shapes that I can use. And notice there's no white here. It's all these cream colors that come right from the reference. I've painted them in, even if they're at low opacity. I have the blank gray background on purpose to help delineate that white shirt a little bit. Because I don't want to draw a line around it that would undo so much of the work I did here, because it would just become obvious that something was outlined. Okay, and some of my overall values. Knocking back some highlights, midtones. Your midtones between highlights and shadows are where all your texture happens. If you have texture everywhere, it becomes distracting. So sometimes you even have to smooth out some of what you've done. Knock back some highlights. All right. Now, it's not great to have a triangle go right to the edge of the painting. That's an uncomfortable tangency in composition. Of course, in digital art, I can always grow the canvas. But remember, you're not a photographer here, you're a painter, so you can just change the shape of the shirt as well. You get to make up the composition as you go along. So even though I don't see much of this, I'm going to extend that shadow a little bit wider, bring some reds into it, and keep it pretty low opacity, pretty soft edged, because this isn't where I want people focusing. Now, one color I've kind of ignored completely, but has been mixed, is purple. So now I might seek out some purples within what I've painted. Try not to play favorites with color. Try to use them all to their best effect, wherever they're useful. And generally, there's certain ones we lean on and others that we naturally ignore. So at the end, it's a good time to kind of go in and punch up some less utilized color that we're biased against. For me, that's definitely purple. I'm heavy on the warm side with my palettes. A lot of oranges, reds, and yellows. Don't always know what to do with purple. I may even just go in and select a purple and start painting with it, just to force myself. It can be useful in some of these creases, especially with the yellow as a complement. Be useful in the hair as a mid-tone in between. Be helpful on the chin to kind of break up some of these darks, but still keep them cool. And then you have it to select from, and I'll use it on the chest and the neck. If you want to deepen the purple, simply click in your foreground and just push it more into the black corner. And now back to the shirt. You know, less is more for sure. Over here we have some stronger shapes and edges out of focus.